that's been set up to accomplish these ends in a very highly deceptive way. The Federal Reserve System was begun in response to the collapse of fractional banking at the local level by the bankers and the political cronies who are now doing this at the national level to regulate it all. Actual real fiat money came into existence in this country in 1968. We had a repudiation of the promise to pay in gold in 1933, and we had the repudiation to pay in silver in 1967 and 1968. And so it was not until 1968, June, that we really had a true fiat currency for the first time in the Federal Reserve Note. Since then, we have seen a geometrically accelerating breakdown in the monetary and banking systems in America. So what? What are the results? Today, we suffer under a regime of fiat currency and unlimited fractional reserve banking. The Federal Reserve plays a vital but simple role. The public confidence in the monetary banking system weakens because of the effect of the overexpansion of the fiat money. Fiat money follows the same path: expansion, expansion, expansion. And the wonderful Federal Reserve Corporation steps in to restore confidence. Isn't that nice? By what they call fighting inflation. They're going to fight for you. But they never fight inflation so drastically that they precipitate a genuine economic collapse or endanger the interests of the banking cartel, its satellite industries, or the political cronies. There is a problem. Any system of fractional reserve banking suffers from inherent instability that only increases over time. You see, my friends, it's a pyramid scheme. They don't want Americans involved in pyramid schemes because we might make money. But by God, they're going to do it. And you don't know it. Consequently, we can expect that the remaining lifetime of the Federal Reserve confidence game is relatively short-lived. The Federal Reserve System is not simply a control mechanism for the national banking cartel. It is one of the most important mechanisms in a pervasive system of economic regulations that's ever existed in the history of the United States, or that the world has even seen. And this explains the political independence of the Federal Reserve System. If an administrative state is to regulate the economy with relative autonomy from the electoral public and most special interest groups, then the monetary agency must claim political independence. The political independence of the Federal Reserve System is precisely what one would expect it to claim when it's part of an anti-democratic mechanism for economic and political control. The fact that no constitutional branch of the national government, not the Congress, not the judiciary, not the president, ever disputes the Federal Reserve System's supposed independence shows the truth of the claim. Let's talk about communism, the results of monetary fraud. Contemporary political money and the banking system that generates it has 5 major consequences. Number 1, political money is the prime means by which the government operates a system of hidden taxation through the increases in the supply of money, the inflation mechanism. Inflation of the money supply is a hidden form of taxation. And one of the ways in which the government can redistribute real wealth from citizens to the state is by changing the amount of money in circulation. Number 2, by operating a system of hidden taxation, modern political money allows the ruling elite of the country to redistribute the nation's wealth from one group to another. The American Institute for Economic Research, Great Barrington, Massachusetts, they put out a paper every year describing the amount of money that's been redistributed since World War II. And the last one shows and documents that $6 trillion has been redistributed since World War II from the people to the ruling elite. A tremendous loss of wealth since World War II due to the Federal Reserve Corporation, a private company. 3, by functioning as a mechanism for redistributing wealth, modern political money systematically corrupts the electoral process because it enables politicians to buy votes with government spending programs, made only possible by the banking system's ability to monetize the public debt. By tying the banks to the public debt, modern political money licenses the banks to loot the public treasury, first by guaranteeing the Federal Reserve notes as obligations of the United States, calling them legal tender, and second, by providing bailouts to the bankers through FSLIC, RTC, FDIC, or whatever, when the inherent fraudulent fractional reserve banking scheme collapses. We can see it happening, hundreds of millions of dollars for the recent savings and loan bailout. How much for the coming commercial banks bailout? Insurance companies, pension funds. It all eventually will have to be bailed out. And 5, modern political money and banking function as a key mechanism in the scheme of economic planning that misdirects and wastes resources and thereby deliberately is designed to lower the standard of living of most Americans. We see communism collapsing in Eastern Europe, the former Soviet Union, other parts of the world, but we have still got it here. How to take action? What can we do about it? A reform of the Federal Reserve by institutional changes or by the possibility of going to a supranational banking cartel or world banking system, a new world order banking system is ahead. These steps for change can be documented historically based on early instances of American constitutional and statutory law. We must follow these steps to bring the United States monetary system back into conformance with constitutional law. First, we have to declare unconstitutional the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, the seizure of gold coin in 1933, and the outlawing in 1934 of private contracts calling for payment in gold or silver. See, we have to condemn the basic steps that were taken by the government in undoing our money system and establishing ultimately the fiat currency system. Second, we have to disestablish the Federal Reserve System and privatize the few politically legitimate and economically useful functions that it has, such as a national clearinghouse, for example, whose functions would be legitimate and useful for private banks. Third, we have to definitely terminate the status of Federal Reserve notes as obligations of the United States and as legal tender for all debts. There is no constitutional justification for the American taxpayer to be the ultimate guarantor for the investment schemes of the banks, the savings and loans, and the Federal Reserve. Fourth, we have to dedicate to the restoration of the constitutional money system the gold that was unconstitutionally seized from the American people in 1933. Most of the gold that's been held at Fort Knox and West Point, if it's still there, is what is called the coin melt gold. It is the 90% pure gold that was melted down from gold coins that were seized during the 1933 seizure. You see, the American government was involved in receiving stolen goods at the time, and it must be returned to those from whom it was taken. The sole purpose is for the restoration of our constitutional money system. We must revalue in terms of constitutional dollars all other outstanding contracts that are now payable in Federal Reserve notes. The contracts must have some real value attached to them. The real value would be their value in constitutional dollars. we must be